What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Festool Fest, the show that celebrates Festool. Festool is in the Festooliverse. You may be interested in Festool and thinking that, wow, man, Festool is really expensive. And you know what? Festool is pretty pricey. Like if I wanted to get the track, so it's going to cost you now with the tariff $666.74. So it's certainly not necessarily as cheap as, say, however, you can find nice deals on used Festool from time to time. You just kind of have to keep your eyes open and get out there and have a look. And that's what I got here for you today. Let me show you. This is a used TS55 EQ Plus USA model, and I think it's going to be a great bargain. Let's have a look. Now, as you can see, it's also in an older T-Lock sustainer, which was the current version of the sustainer back in 2011 when this saw was purchased. Let's have a look inside. And we've got the plug-it cable, and then of course there's the saw. The TS55 EQ. Now, also included with the saw is a couple other accessories. The splinter guard. This goes on the side of the unit here. It goes in like this. And then a locking screw which goes on here. Now what this does is, especially if you're using sheet goods, plywood, this helps to prevent splintering on the right side of the cut. Now, if you've been watching the channel, you know we had a video about the predecessor to this, the ATF55, which is the first saw that Festool brought to America when it first came to the country, I think in 1999 or 2000. This particular model came out in 2006 or so, and it replaces the ATF55 and has a lot of updated features. One of the first things that you'll notice, so the plug-in cable goes in here, goes with a twist. Another thing that's really a nice change from the ATF55 is that this is the first year that Festool went to magnesium plates. The previous one had stamped steel plates, better cams for locking into the rail, right? So these cams here go into your rail, and as you can see here at the bottom, they adjust that way, right? Definitely an improvement with the dust collection port here. On the old ATF55, that kind of like rectangular shape was really hard to get your hose to fit in. This one should be a lot easier. I've got the newest current model of the D27 hose, and that fits in nice and snug. So that's a great thing, because using the ATF55 can be a little bit distressing in that respect. Some of the other upgrades is that we've got a better scale here, is nice and better marked. It's also got in millimeters. If you're used to a little more modern TS55, this only has one scale. Like there's no other FS marking. So this is just the straight cut depth. So if you're trying to account for the rail depth, just add 5 millimeters to your cut and you'll be fine. Then there's also a scale here so you can do angle cuts to 45 degrees. Fast fix, so it's easy to replace your blade. Now the blade is 160 millimeters. It comes with a 48 tooth blade that has a 2.2 millimeter kerf, and that will change to 1.8 millimeters on the FEQ, the current model that's out today. But the question is, can it cut well in 2025? And is this a viable option for you to use in modern times? Now, to let you know, I did get this from a local furniture cabinet maker here in Baltimore who was selling it, getting rid of it. He had just upgraded to the TS55 FEQ, but he'd been using this the entire time. So this saw should still be quite viable today. Let's go give it a try. But before we use any power tools, I want to talk about shop safety. Be sure to read, understand, and follow all the safety rules that come with your power tools. Knowing how to use your power tools properly will greatly reduce the risk of personal injury. And remember this, there is no more important safety rule than to wear these safety glasses. I've got some 4/4 walnuts that I need to cut up for an upcoming video, so we're going to do 12-inch length. Now, if we look at the cut, it's a little bit burned. On the right side of the cut, it's very clean. On the left side, we are seeing some burning on the inside. That's a little bit concerning. As you can see, this is some rough sawn lumber, so it's a little bit bowed here. As you can see, it's going to be a little bit tricky to cut. The rail is going to roll just a little bit. The next cut, which is on 1/2-inch plywood. I know a lot of you are thinking about using these kind of track saws for plywood and not necessarily for rough sawn lumber. So let's have a look at the plywood and let's see the cut. So the cut's going fairly well, you know, it's fairly smooth and there's no real resistance. I mean, it's only half an inch, so it's not going to be too taxing on the saw. Now that the cut is done, let's have a look at the finished results. And as you can see on the inside, there is some more burning. Now, I would be concerned about this. However, I'm thinking that it could just be the age of the tool. Now, as a comparison, let's look at the cuts from the older ATF55, the predecessor to the TS55. Here's the walnut cutting through. Now, this particular blade that's on the ATF55, I recently had it sharpened by Festool sharpening. You can see that video. And that's cutting really nicely. And let's look at the cut itself, and it's very clean. Both sides to that are very clean. So this is the outside cut, and this is the inside cut. So the outside and inside cut from the ATF55. So very clean on this one. And let's have a look at the cut for the plywood. And again, the ATF55 is going a little bit smoothly now. The one thing with the ATF55, of course, the older port is a little bit more finicky. You really got to shove the hose into it to make it work. And I was able to make it work. I did get a little bit on me at the beginning. But as you can see now, the cut's finished. Let's look at it. Looks nice and clean. It's really clean. So here's what I'm thinking, that the burning that's happening with the TS55 EQ is because the blade is older. It looks a little bit dirty, right? It looks a little bit dirty. Could be needing its sharpening. What I really is going to have to do is take this out again, put it in a cleaning solution, clean it up, and then see how it cuts. Then if it still burns, then it's gonna be time to send it off to Festool sharpening, and they laser etch your name on it. So that's kind of fun. Now let's do a comparison with the newest and current model, TS55 EQ. This one is going to be a little bit different. Still 160 millimeter blade, same, 1 15/16 of an inch cut, 50 millimeter cut. On the walnut, super clean. Everything is really, really nice. It goes through it really smoothly on the cross cut. Nothing to complain about there. And look at that, the grain is just super clean. Then on the plywood, I tell you what, it cuts through it like butter. It's only a 0.4 millimeter difference in the thickness of the blades. But man, it really seems to make a big difference. It just slices through everything. And you can see just how quickly it's coming through. And that's the current model FEQ, so it should be better than everything that's come before it. When it comes to the TS55 EQ, we're talking a saw that is now over 10 years old. The model has been out since 2006. This ran from 2006 to 2013, and then it was replaced by the TS55 REQ. And then that TS55 REQ was the main model until the FEQ was released, I think, in 2023. So this is pretty old, but it is still I think it's still a viable saw to use in 2025. Don't be afraid to ask for a price that's commensurate with the tool. This actually was made in 2011, 14 years old. So consider the age of the tool, look at the wear of the tool. One thing you can ask for is a photograph of the manufacturer's plate, and all the Festool has a manufacturer's plate that lists the date of manufacture as well as all the other important numbers pertinent to the tool. So don't be afraid to ask for that, and use that as as a guide to help you figure out, well, how much should it be worth? And some people use metrics like 60% of the current price, but I don't know if that's really something that's applicable depending on how old the tool is and the wear of the tool. A lot of times you'll see some tools out there and they're pretty well worn and pretty heavily, torn up, and I think that should take into account. This one overall is pretty clean, especially for one that's been used in a professional cabinet woodworking shop for many, many years. So it's actually a pretty nice tool. But I said to him, he was asking a price that I thought was a bit on the high side, a little bit optimistic. And I messaged him after seeing it on there for a number of times. I messaged him and said, hey, not to be I'm not trying to be argumentative, just wanted to say that, considering the age of the tool and the generation of the tool, like this is now 3 generations of the TS55 old. And I said to him, perhaps your price might be a little bit on the high side. You know, always trying to be respectful, always not trying to be antagonistic. Like, you know, some people on the internet, they're always like, oh, you know, you're like a jerk off for doing that. You know, that doesn't work. That doesn't help your ability to negotiate. And I said to him, and then he came back and he's like, if you're interested, let's talk. And I was like, yeah, I'm interested, but you know, for the tool, I think that, you know, I can offer $100. And he was like, cool, let's do it. And so here it is, $100 Festool TS55 EQ. I think that's a great price for a tool of this age. Not to say that you can get that, but you know, something, you know, find a price that you're willing to live with and see if they'll go for it. And if they are, hey, that's a great thing, you know. But if it's higher, if it's lower, don't sweat it. Find yourself a nice tool that you can work with. And I do think that the TS55 EQ can be a viable tool in your workshop in 2025. So there it is, the TS55 EQ. Hope this helps. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I'm interested to hear. If you have suggestions for future videos or any tools that you'd like to see, let me know and we'll see what we can do. All right, so thank you very much for tuning in and see you next time.